Hello, Dental 18 listeners. This is Kira, and oh my gosh, today is such a fantastic, amazing, incredible day. You guys, Dental 18's podcast is 5 years old. If this was a child, it would be going off to kindergarten today. And I am so excited that you guys have been with us for 5 years. This podcast was started in 2019. Yes, 3-3. March is the number 3 is my favorite number. And it was funny. We tried to release the podcast on Valentine's Day, actually. I was going to say this is like our gift and my goal to give back to the dental community and to give the love to the dental community. And it didn't work on Apple. Like they held me up for a while and it released on 3-3, which makes me even happier because 3 is my favorite number. So 5 years, you guys, 5 years of so many fun memories with you guys, so many fun things. Give Dental 18 a birthday present today. Go leave a Google review. Go leave a podcast review. Go share it on social media. Share it with someone today. 5 years of just love. And I think about how many episodes we've recorded, how many journeys we've been on. I mean, as I was prepping for this podcast, I just thought back to some of the funny moments that I've had. The one where I literally finished a podcast as I was headed to an office. I used to car cast a lot while I was on the road. And that was before video. And so I was car casting and I remember it was super late at night. You guys have kept me alive so many times doing this podcast, driving late at night. And I remember I literally had just ended the podcast. So it was like, and thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time on the Dental 18 podcast. Had just hit the end button and there were cop lights in my back window. And I'm like, well, number one, I'm so grateful that it didn't happen while I was podcasting. Like, could you imagine like being on a microphone with a cop showing up to me? That felt stressful to me. And I remember just like, all right. And I was going, I think like literally 3 miles over the speed limit in this small little town in Washington. And I was headed to this office and they're like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I do dental consulting and I'm headed to an office. And lo and behold, the officer's wife happened to be a hygienist. So I said, oh my gosh, well, if she ever doesn't like her job, she should work for this office. So I did not get a ticket, but like that was just a moment. I remember I live in Nevada. My parents are in California and going over the border, there's the it's agriculture stopping point and I've car casted there and I've been holding a microphone and the people just look at me like I'm doing my old weird karaoke in the car by myself. Another time when I did my one and only, it's only one time I ever did it. It was air casting where I did a podcast in an airplane on a flight. And I remember the flight attendant came to me. I was holding the microphone. And she's like, I can't hear you better up there. And she thought I was using a microphone to project my voice, like talk about the most snooty person in the world. Like, hey, I am so important. I have a microphone so you can hear me. Please get me my drinks faster. And so that was a fun giggle. I did one podcast where people called it plopcasting. And that's where I was at an airport and did a podcast in the only quiet place. So you wouldn't be hearing all the like motion behind me was in this bathroom. And so I went into a bathroom for it was like I was in there for a good 30, 35 minutes podcasting. It was totally silent. I took a picture of myself like posing like this in front of the bathroom mirror because that's where I had podcasted. But just thinking of the number of places that this podcast has gone, I've had so many people, clients and non-clients, reach out and tell me that I've traveled the world with them, that we've listened, we've gone to Paris, we've gone to France, we've gone to Italy, we've gone on all the outskirts of the countries, just traveling together. I've heard that I've gone on your morning walks with you, that every day you listen in and that you just look for positivity. I heard a doctor who told me they listen while they're mowing the lawn, and another doctor tell me like while they're getting ready for work, and another doctor tell me that their kids always know that it's Kira on the podcast when I come on, and that's Miss Kira on the podcast. And just knowing that I've been able to be a part of your life, of your family's life, that this podcast has truly been a part of your team. Offices telling me that they would listen to the podcast during team meetings and being able to really talk about some of the controversial conversations that we've had on here. And people telling me like things you've told us on the podcast have really, truly changed my life personally and my business professionally. And I just have to say thank you. Thanks for making Dental 18 one of the top dental podcasts out there. This was a dream. I've shared it a few times. It was a dream where I was actually hiking Yosemite, Half Dome. My husband had asked me, hey, Kira, let's just go down to Yosemite. I'd really, really love just like a fun weekend there. Well, if you've known me at all, I usually will make things even more fun. And I said, oh my gosh, we're going to Yosemite. Let's do Half Dome. I'd heard of a way to get permits. And my husband's like, I was just thinking we'd go like do small hikes, but I guess we're doing Half Dome. And we did get permits. And I remember for the podcast, we were I was walking we were walking and hiking, and I told my husband, I said, hey, I think I want to start a podcast. And he's like, okay, why? And I said, because I just believe that so many things are targeted to the doctors. And as a business owner, the hardest thing is like, I hear it and I learn it, but getting my team to implement it is always a tricky thing. And I said, I'm a team member and I'm a business owner. I'm not a dentist. And I feel like there's always two sides to the coin of dentistry. And so how can I help teach the doctors and empower the doctors while also getting their team on board and really speaking to like, what does it feel like as a team member? How does it feel to be undercut when your doctor thinks that they're supporting you? How does it feel when I feel like I'm being a leader, but my doctor's not there? Doctors, how do I help you see that like you need to hold your team accountable for this? And this is how you can use the verbiage, and really just helping both sides of the coin come together. And that's what birthed Dental Team's podcast. And so thank you guys for being a part of this with me for 5 years. I truly am just so giddy at the fact that we are here together. 5 years later, Dental Team Podcast is one of the top dental podcasts out there. And that's all thanks to you guys. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for putting it on while you're driving to work, tagging us as you guys are driving. Thank you for reaching out, my pen pals. Like I do have some podcast pen pals. And then also for all of the people who have become clients that are in my inner circle that I get to meet you. I get to see you. There's one client in particular, and this client listened to the podcast all the time, like was just a diehard podcast fan, had left so many reviews. I'd known about them, and I talked to them about becoming a client, and it was magical to watch this client less than a year later go from being in the darkest depths of despair to one of the most radiant, blooming people I have ever met. And I texted this doctor the other day and I just said, hey, you are beyond glowing and beaming. And that's not the person I talked to a year ago. And I mean, this person had been a diehard fan, listens all the time. And this client told me, they said, you know, Kira, I'm so much happier. I have more happy days than I have sad days. And your tribe and your community and the tools you have given me as a client have completely transformed my practice, my life, and my team. And so to hear those testimonial stories, to see your guys' numbers, like, of course, I'm a geeky consultant and I love to see your numbers go up, but I love hearing about your life. I love seeing you guys change and evolve. And so just some like fun memory lane. And I'm so excited for those other listeners who have wanted to be clients, to become clients. We now have our group consulting, still always custom, and it's always doctor and team, and then our private consulting as well. And just to expand and evolve our Dental A-Team family. I wanted a way to reach more people. I wanted a more affordable option for those who couldn't afford the one-on-one private consulting, a way for people to try out consulting who maybe are afraid, and then also keeping our namesake of flying to your practices, coming and changing your lives, and really doing that with ease. So I just wanted to share how excited and grateful I am. Happy birthday, Dental Team Podcast. Thank you guys for being a part of Dental Team Podcast life and for sharing it. So the greatest gift you can give Dental Team this year is to share this podcast with someone, to change their life, to bring positivity into their life. I just believe like the world needs more positivity. We're so blessed to be in dentistry, you guys. And why not share it? Why not make our lives easier? So today, because it is the 5th birthday, a little while ago, I was interviewed and asked, what were the 5 things I wish I would have known before becoming a CEO? And that would be a CEO and a leader. I felt like it would be a good topic. And I figured let's do 5 of those reasons. And so I'm excited to share this with you. These are 5 things I wish I would have known before becoming a CEO. And the first one is be a leader and do your job. I really do believe that we have got to be stronger leaders. Keith Cunningham was at a conference I was at one time, and he said, CEOs, do your job. And I remember when I heard that, it hit me like a bullet because I hadn't been doing my job as a leader. I hadn't been being a CEO. I hadn't been looking ahead. I hadn't been protecting the vision. I hadn't been like really, really, really focused in on the numbers and the vision and the culture. And like, that's the non-sexy part of running a business, but that's my job. Like, you are a leader first and a dentist second. And if you'll focus on that in that order, I do believe that there is great success. You are an office manager, but you are a leader first. You are a hygienist, but you are a leader first. And hearing those things, like you just need to show up and do your job. And we don't make excuses. We don't like let our standards slip. We are a leader first. We inspire. And it's so fun to do all the other pieces, but be a leader and do your job. And I wish I would have known that prior to becoming. So that's tip number 1 for you. Tip number 2 is know your numbers, the vitals of your practice. And I love this one so much because honestly, the vitals of your practice, like this is where you can get into hot water. This is where offices really do struggle. And when I worked at the dental college, I saw that like what you learn in school is not what you learn for business. And you learn how to drop those boxes. You learn how to have that perfect mesial buccal cusp. You learn all the tooth numbers. You learn how to do dentistry. You learn how to make beautiful crowns. But you really got to know your numbers. The numbers are what are going to get you where you need to go. And so I feel like so often we don't look at the numbers as business owners. It feels scary. It feels daunting. And I will say, like, know your numbers. They are the vital of your practice. These will guide you. They will lead you. They will show you the treasure map. They will be the levers of which one do I need to turn. And so really being able to focus on and in what order do I need to prioritize things. And so I just love, like, I remember there was a doctor and they were on the verge of bankruptcy. This is like me going back into my consulting days, like, gosh, 250 plus practices I've been in. And this doctor was on the verge of bankruptcy because they refused to look at their numbers. And I just thought, like, that is such a simple thing to fix, but it requires discipline and it requires staying on top of it. And it requires you saying, I don't even know this and I need to figure it out, or I need to hire someone who knows how to do it and to teach me. It is really like, instead of like spending more and more money, you've just got to reverse it and figure out like the billing aspect or this or that. Like the reason this practice was in hot water is because they'd been sitting on a stack of checks for 2 to 3 weeks because they were too busy to enter money into the practice. And that's why they were on the verge of bankruptcy. But they did not look at that. They didn't look at the numbers before they rolled out a bonus structure. Like so often we just get so excited about it. We want to roll out this amazing bonus structure. But did we look at the numbers and consult the numbers to make sure we can actually afford that long term? And so just little small areas of looking at your numbers consistently. And I recommend at a minimum, you look at it every month. I would ideally love you to look at them every single week. So you know your numbers, you know them inside and out. Right now, if you don't know your overhead, you don't know your production, you don't know your collection, you don't know what your AR is off the top of your head without running a report, you need to know your numbers better. And I wish I would have known that the numbers to my practice are the vitals, just like my blood pressure, my heart rate, the way my lungs are, different things like that. Those are the vitals of my body, and they tell us so much. By knowing the vitals of your practice, you're able to learn a ton. So that would be tip number 2 is know your numbers. They are the vitals of your practice. Number 3 is to be a culture master. I think about this so much, and I go back to like when I actually, you guys, when I owned my first practice and I was an owner and an office manager, and I had no idea what a toxic culture could do to my practice. Like literally, I didn't understand what a thriving culture meant. And I believe that thriving cultures are a top secret to lots of businesses. The reality is that you as the owner are the culture master. And notice it's a culture master, not just a culture creator. It's a culture master. And the things that you love about your practice are the things that and the things that you don't are all a reflection of you. So the things you really love and the things you really don't love are thanks to you. And so you just spending a time of changing that and changing the culture will shift. And I know I worked really hard on culture. My culture in our company was not ideal for a while. And I think I was more concerned about being liked as opposed to being respected. And I believe that respect comes first, like becomes second. And I would much rather take a leader who is respected and fair than a leader who's liked, because respected and fair is someone who's truly leading the practice and it is setting a culture, it is setting a tone. And I remember I have an office there in Rhode Island, and I told him, he and I chatted, and he's like, Kira, do you ever feel like culture is a slow burn? And I said, absolutely. It feels like I put so much into my culture without seeing any dividends pay out. It's like I keep putting deposits in, keep doing deposits, and it is really a slow burn and it doesn't happen overnight. And so figure out what an ideal culture is, figure out what's going wrong in your practice, figure out those gaps, figure out how you can change them, and then become consistent. I do believe the slow burn of culture is consistency. So culture cultivators are what dentists need to become masters of. By creating the culture, you develop a team that automatically flows because you're living by culture and no longer needing the accountability as much. Accountability becomes part of the culture. So it's not like we're pushing for accountability first. Accountability is our culture, and our culture is what's driving. But notice that it comes behind it and it drives it through. And so bottom line is things like accountability, ownership for mistakes, growth-minded, humility, confidence, success, positivity, all of those can be your culture. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that to have a successful career as a dentist, as a practice owner, as an office manager, it's about the culture of your practice. So become a culture master, really, really hone into that. I mean, it took me I would say our culture really started to change about a year and a half, 2 years after I started putting things in, like the Friday fives and core values. I've changed my core values so many times because I realized it was not driving the culture that I wanted. Really starting to own myself and rise up and show up and do my job as a CEO. Those things started to shift culture. Not valuing one person more than another person, not having sacred cows, if you will. Like, those are massive air quotes. None of my team are cows, but sacred cows, you get the illusion of you can't kill off this person is so special. They're above the law. That's toxic for culture. And something I really learned was the worst thing I can do to great employees is to tolerate the poor performance of bad employees. Because that's me saying that this is what matters and this is what's most important. They're not most important. So that would be tip number 3. Tip number 4 is empower your team. Gosh, like, one of the biggest mistakes I see new and experienced dentists make is the thought that they have to know it all. And the reality is you don't. And also for doctors to try and hold on to everything and to micromanage things and to realize, like, no, like, set the standard and get the heck out of the way. Humility and a culture that sets you apart, plus the freedom to make mistakes and allow your team to really grow, is the same thing. A team who's empowered to grow the practice, a practice far beyond anything you can imagine, is one of, like, empowering them. They will grow it far beyond anything you can ever imagine. And I just think about this so much of, we feel like we have to hold on and we feel like our team's not going to be able to build as big of a vision. And I remember I went to an office in Washington. It was actually the same office that I got pulled over on my way to them. And the doctor was really concerned about the team buying into the vision. And I said, look, well, let's just take it to the team and let's see what they thought. And honestly, it was crazy because that team built a far greater vision than that doctor even could dream up on their own. And they were bought into it. And it was like, here's the vision. Now let us run with it within the realms that you have. So setting those parameters, but empower your team. John C. Maxwell said a really awesome quote, and he said, people rise and fall to meet your level of expectations for them. So expect your team to rise up. Expect them to be that top practice. Remember, you don't need to know it all. You just need to give the vision, empower your team to grow it even bigger than you can imagine, and get out of their way, expecting them to exceed your expectations. Yes, we need the accountability. Yes, we need the parameters for them, but get out of their way. I can't tell you how many times doctors jump in thinking they're helping that office manager, and they're actually undermining them. My husband just had this happen, and his boss did such a great thing. Like, team members went to his boss and his boss handled it. But what was crazy is that actually took away my husband's ability to solve those problems with those team members. Now those team members just go right to their owner, aka the doctor, instead of going to the office manager. And that really undermines your leaders. So trust them, support them, back them, and empower them. So that would be tip number 4. And then last is tip number 5. Tip 5 for 5 dental team years together. Keep your passion alive. Like, I really do believe this is something I wish I would have known prior to becoming a CEO, prior to owning a practice, prior to becoming like even a dental assistant, is keep your passion alive. Like, we really have to keep our passion for dentistry and business out there, because when we first start, it's like exciting and we're hungry. And then, like, the drudge of the day in, day out hits us, and we start to forget why we even became a dentist, became a practice owner, became an office manager, a hygienist. And so keeping that passion alive with a conviction that it cannot be shaken. And so what I think about that is you've got to constantly be feeding it through CE, through personal development, also through mental health, like taking time, like putting yourself as a priority, making sure you're getting the health, the sleep and the rest you need, working out, eating healthy, like taking care of our bodies to keep that passion alive, because progress equals happiness. We've got to find ways to challenge ourselves. So if it's adding in new CE, or it's getting excited about a new thing of the business, or it's hiring a coach that can inspire you, or it's mental health, or it's like, I get passionate about helping my team member exceed their pieces and their goals and their dreams. And so this is something that I really loved, was have a date with yourself annually. So put it on. You can put it on 3/3. It can be every year on Dental Team's birthday, the podcast birthday. Have a date with yourself annually to see where you stack up well and where you want to grow, and then execute that. My friend had me do a really cool thing. I can't wait. It hasn't happened, but he said, Kira, make a date with yourself, like 2-3 years, put it in the calendar of where you are today and where you hope to be, and then check and see where you are. So I literally did it. I have no idea where it is in my calendar. I don't go search for it. And he told me he did that, and it was so fun for him because he knows he has a date with himself in 2 or 3 years, and he wants to find ways to keep that passion, that excitement, the joy alive, because I believe that there are 2 sides to the coin of success. One is the amazing freedom, and the other one's the tax side, where it's hard. And with great success comes great responsibility. So find joy in that responsibility. Like find joy in creating a culture, find joy in mastering things. Like they're the hard part. That's also why we decided to show up for the game of business. And I call it the game of business. Find like games can be so fun. So find ways to have it be fun. Remind yourself that you truly are in the best industry possible. You guys hear me talk about this all the time, where we get to change lives one smile, one mouth, one practice at a time. And so for you guys, just really like, remember why you're here. Remember, keep that passion alive. Whatever you've got to do, go have fun, take vacations, do the different things that you know you were meant to do. And I'll recap those again for you for the 5 tips this year of what I wish I would have known that I want to share with you for Dental Team's 5th podcast birthday. Oh my gosh. So be a leader and do your job. Number 1. Number 2 is know your numbers and the vitals of your practice. 3 is be a culture master. 4 is empower your team. And 5 is keep your passion alive. You guys, I really do believe that those things can drive you. I notice it's leadership, it's your numbers, it's the culture and accountability, it's empowering your team and getting out of their way, and then keeping our passion alive and taking care of ourselves. That is the secret, you guys. There's so many things. Like when I was asked this question, I really did a deep dive and I thought about all the practice owners I know and the hundreds of offices we've seen, and I really tried to compile it into something for you. Those are the 5 things that I wish I would have known that you can take and learn from. And if we can help you, if we can inspire you, if what we're teaching and what we show you and grow you to have those things, like give you the tools for that, reach out, hello@thedentalteam.com. You guys, happy birthday. I'm so grateful that you've been a part of this journey with me, whether you've been from day 1, whether you've joined me on day 365, 720, you name it. There's so many days along this, whether you've just started on the podcast or you've been listening for a long time. Go back and listen to the wealth of knowledge that's there. Everything I've shared on this podcast has been real. It's been things that I've done, things I've seen in practices, and none of it's theories. All of it's real because I want you to get the best experience and to know that you can count on anything I ever tell you to do. So head on back. You guys can always go over to our website, thedentalteam.com, click on our podcast icon, and then search any topic. So case acceptance, hiring, anything you're struggling with, I guarantee you I have a podcast for you on it. And if you're like me and you're like, no, I need someone to hold my hand and guide me through this and make sure I follow through, reach out, hello@thedentalteam.com. I created this community for you. I created this to inspire you and to empower you. And I give my heart and soul to you every single time I get onto this podcast. And I'm so grateful that you've given me the opportunity to be a part of your life. I can create the content, but you're the one who listens. And I'm grateful for you sharing the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. Go make your life the best life it can be. Go make your practice the best it can be. Live your dream of a life. It can be whatever you want it to be. And make sure you keep showing up for yourself. 'Tis the season for that. Happy birthday. Thank you guys for being a part of it. And as always, thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time on the Dental Team Podcast.